to Short on Sports. My name is Andrew Valentin, and as you can tell, I'm covered head to toe at this point. I do apologize. Unfortunately, I got a little bit of a tickle in my throat. Just for precautions, just trying to take it a little bit easy here on this. But we're still doing the show, ladies and gentlemen. I still got a knack for talking sports. We got a lot to talk about, of course, some really nice subjects. So without further ado, we're going to get into this. But I'm not alone here, ladies and gentlemen. As always, when I do the Short on Sports, I'm, of course, here with the wonderful man himself, Mr. TJ Knacker. TJ, how you doing, man?
Doing all right. It was a nice little weekend. A little too much rain, but we're all good. So I'm ready to talk about some sports right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So am I, man. And as always, it's very great to have the man here with, as you have all been saying, a very wonderful beard. And let's just get right into it because there's another beautiful man we got to talk about, shall we, TJ?
Let's do this thing.
Let's do it. So we're starting this one off with, in the first half, we are talking about Tom Brady. Yes, that's right, Tom Brady, because obviously the news has been flooding around him like crazy. It has been an absolute crazy couple of weeks with him kind of talking about what's going down in his life, right? He takes, what was it, like 11, 12 days? He took an absence from the team, obviously. He has since returned to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? He's now back at practice. He's doing his thing. So, some big props, obviously, to Tom Brady, being able to take some time off, of course. But obviously, there's a lot of discussion about what happened there. Why did he take time off? This apparently was a pre-planned pre-planned vacation or whatever you want to call it, time away before training camp even started. This was something that they were discussing. So obviously, Tom Brady, and it sounds like, I guess, him and his wife, the idea is that he went on vacation. There's all these rumors going around about, oh, he was on the Masked Singer and all this other stuff. I don't think that was the case at all. But obviously, there's a lot of people that are trying to guess and figure out, obviously, well, why did Tom Brady miss time? Why was he not obviously out there, practicing with his teammates for that little bit of time? So there's a lot of speculation. I'm kind of falling on the front of saying I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that probably it was a vacation, probably something that was pre-planned, and Giselle was like, all right, listen, you want to go back to football, you can, but probably she said, all right, but we're taking this vacation. We're all going out on this vacation together. So I think that was a big part of it. But obviously, that's a small portion of it because more news came in, obviously, if you haven't heard, because there was a huge UFC fight that was going down this week. By the way, shout out to Leon Edwards with an incredible knockout to Usman. That was a very good fight. That was something that was highly unexpected, and it was a great battle between the two of them. Very last second knockout. It's awesome to see that kind of stuff happen. Sorry about that. Trying to make sure I'm adjusted to make sure everything's all copacetic. But basically, during this, Dana White came on. If you don't know, the UFC did this thing with the Gronkowskis. Rob Gronkowski kind of leading the charge in Vegas, because it was in Vegas. So they're doing this whole like Manning cast thing for the UFC. And during it, Gronkowski asked Dana White, while they have him, to bring up a story only briefly about a deal that was going to happen between the Raiders and Tom Brady, and apparently also Rob Gronkowski, which basically meant that both Gronkowski and Brady were going to be Raiders for, the foreseeable future. So this is the audio. This is Dana White telling the story of basically what happened and why this deal did not happen in reference to Jon Gruden, apparently, as he puts it, blowing up the deal. Here's the audio.
I'm the one, I worked to put that deal together for Brady and Gronk to come to the Raiders. And it was almost a done deal. And at the last minute, Gruden blew the deal up and said that he didn't want him. And all hell broke loose, man. It was crazy. And Brady was already looking at houses, and it wasn't being said yet that Gronk was coming. So Las Vegas would have had Brady and Gronk the year that the Bucs won the Super Bowl, except Gruden blew the deal up. And there's so much story that goes along with this behind the scenes. And I was never going to tell that story till Gronk just said it.
So that's Dana White. That's talking to the Gronkowskis while this whole UFC thing's going on. And it's very interesting. TJ, you hear that audio. And I want to know, before I give my perspective, I want to hear from you. What do you think about what Dana White just said in that story? Because I have my own thoughts on it, and I'm going to get to that here in after you. But I want to know from you personally, what do you think about what Dana White just said? And also, do you think how much truth do you think there is to this too? Like, how much do you believe this story with Dana White as well?
So, I mean, I think it's potentially true. I don't really know how much is true. I would have liked the move in a one way, but just because you have Tom Brady doesn't mean you're going to win a Super Bowl. And I don't know if that would have really, like, it's not apples to apples because you didn't bring in the same team. You don't have the same wide receivers. So I don't know if that would have really, led to a Super Bowl.
Right.
The other thing is, could Gruden have blown it up? Yeah. I mean, we're well aware that Jon Gruden does have as my mom would say, a self-inflated opinion of himself. So if you have a quarterback who is, Mr. Commercial, Mr. Subway, and he's doing all this stuff,
yeah,
is he really going to want to take orders from Jon Gruden when Jon Gruden's screaming at him? I don't think so. I think it would have been kind of get out the measuring stick and see which one's bigger of who's going to run this team. That was possible. Now, I mean, is it possible that that's all happened and Gronkowski is going to go? Those are two separate moves, and I just think it's kind of good television, good publicity to say, oh, we almost had Brady. The Raiders almost had Brady. We almost had you, Gronk. But, that Jon Gruden guy, that evil guy that's not here anymore, and he got in trouble. Well, it's all his fault. And then you Raiders fans, you have him to blame why we don't have Tom Brady. So that's what I think.
Dana White, I have a weird relationship with Dana White. Not like I know him personally, but in terms of, do I like him? Do I not like him? I think he's a good businessman. I don't know if he's necessarily a great person, but I think sometimes when you want to be one of the best businessmen you possibly can be, it sometimes means you can't always be the great person, right? Like I don't know, TJ, I don't know if you heard about it, but there was this recent thing where Jake Paul called him out, Dana White. He called him out about how he has to level off fighters' pay and they should get paid more and all kinds of stuff like that. And Dana White came out and said, I'm not raising the pay for fighters at all. And obviously, he's going to get some backlash for that. But if you obviously know the fight game, there's a lot of expenses that go down with it. And it's understandable why he would make a statement like that at the same time. Do I think that certainly the fighters do deserve more pay? I absolutely do. But I think when it comes to a guy like Dana White, he has a lot of power. I think he has a lot of ability to talk to the right people because obviously I don't think he's a billionaire yet, but I'm pretty sure he's probably on the verge of being one. He certainly has made quite a success at being the president of the UFC with the Fertitta brothers and everything like that, and how he's kind of built this thing to a level where now it is really right there, I would say, with boxing, right? In a lot of ways, people think that MMA may have even surpassed boxing at this point, and I can totally understand it. I still like boxing myself, but I can understand that kind of that way of thinking. But I mean, I think at the end of the day, I still truly don't know how much I can believe in this story. And I also asked, like, my biggest question on all of this when it comes to Tom Brady is, why is it we care so much, right? That's the biggest thing I've got. Like, nothing against Tom Brady, this is a fine story for what it is. But the reason I'm making it a story myself is to say, well, why are we actually so invested in this whole thing? Why are we so completely diving into Brady taking time off, or Dana White saying they were almost Raiders? Yeah, well, they almost were Dolphins, and they almost were Chargers, and Brady was almost an everything quarterback to everybody, right? He could have gone to any team in the NFL, and they would have dumped him other than like the Buffalo Bills or the Kansas City Chiefs. There were maybe like, what, 5, 6, 7 teams, I would say, TJ, right? That maybe didn't need him when he was leaving the Patriots. Is that correct to say? Give or take?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like everyone had, oh, well, Tom Brady came into town to Chicago and he was touring the facilities and he's gonna be a bear and this is gonna be the savior. Yeah, well, maybe he just wanted some pizza and wanted to go take the kids shopping on the Magnificent Mile. I mean, it seemed like he was oh yeah, he's gonna be anywhere else. He's going here, he's going there, and all of a sudden, boop, he shows up in Tampa.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the whole thing about Tom Brady leaving the Patriots, I mean, he obviously said in Man in the Arena, if you haven't seen that this was nothing about bad blood with Bill Belichick. I don't know if it was bad blood, but I think there definitely was a feeling of there was a difference of opinions, right? Tom Brady was tired, I think, of the military lifestyle that Bill Belichick kept trying to bleed out there in New England. And I think he wanted to go somewhere where he could have more fun. Well, now he's trying to be more structured. So now the whole Bruce Arians thing, hey, Bruce Arians is all about fun and they win a Super Bowl, but now it's all disorganized and he doesn't like this. And now, Todd Bowles is a guy that he can kind of domineer and take control over. And it just feels like at the end of the day, when you hear all these different stories and we talk about all these different things, I don't know if Dana White's story is 100% true or not, because we heard he was going to every single other team. And honestly, who cares if Tom Brady is taking time off to be with his family? Guy's 45 years old. This is probably his last season. He's not allowed to take some vacation time off. I understand that Antonio Brown calling out Tom Brady is, I think it's a weird thing. I honestly think he's kind of like, yeah, it's maybe a little bit of unjustified or whatever the case is, but I mean, look, man, you're 45 years old, you've won 7 Super Bowls. If you're in that same position, wouldn't you try to use your power to say, hey, I just need like a week off? Like if I remember correctly, John Elway left practice early during the end of his career when they went to back-to-back Super Bowls with the Denver Broncos at the end, right? 97, 98, I believe it was John Elway who was saying basically, hey, I'm going to halfway through practice, Mike Shanahan was basically saying, okay, you're done for the day. Because why are you going to get him broken? Why are you going to do that to him? He's old. He's taken a lot of hits. You know what he can do? He's John Elway. This is Tom Brady. I just think it's a real nothing story, and I get why the media is piling on it because, of course, it's Tom Brady. Famous people are going to famous people, and when famous people do the famous people things, we, of course, get really attracted to those stories. I mean, look at what we're doing. We're talking about it right now. But I'm talking about in the sense of why does it really matter? And why is Dana White bringing this up? Well, Rob Gronkowski asked him the question about the whole thing. Yeah, that's fine. That's whatever. But I seriously do not feel like Dana White. I think he's a great deal maker. I think he's a business guy. I seriously doubt he had any real involvement in the Raiders trying to get Tom Brady. I know they're friends. I know he's been a Brady fan since he was in New England. I get all that. I seriously doubt Dana White had any real involvement in the deals that were being made. I know he lives in Vegas. I know Vegas is his town. I completely understand that. But I think it's important to understand that anything that Dana White is saying, I would take with a grain of salt at this point. That's a nice little story to tell, and if that's a story he wants to tell, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But I would seriously not put a lot of weight and gold in behind it, because I've seen some people being like, oh, well, if this is the case, then, well, who cares if it's the case? It didn't happen, did it? Is he a Raider right now, TJ? Do you see him in the silver and black right now?
No, not at all.
Okay, that's what I thought. And obviously people are like, oh, so the guy who was in the shop, obviously that little clip from the shop where he's like, you want this guy? Are you kidding me? They're going, oh, so that was Derek Carr then. So what? So what if it was Derek Carr? Obviously, Gruden believed enough in Derek Carr that he said, I want to keep this guy. Give it to Jon Gruden. He's the head coach. If he says, I don't really want this quarterback, all right, fine. You don't want Tom Brady? I mean, sounds ridiculous, right? But, come on. You think they're really going to win the Super Bowl? Really? Maybe, but I seriously doubt it at the end of the day. So I would honestly tell everybody, Dana White's little thing about Tom Brady going to be the Raider and Jon Gruden blowing it up, Don't read anything into it. And who cares if he takes days off? He's Tom Brady. Let the old man rest. Let the guy be able to breathe. You know, he deserves a little bit of time off. All right. Well, that's going to do it for the Tom Brady stuff, folks. When we do come back, we're going to take a quick break. And when we are back, I got some words on Kevin Durant. There's a lot that's obviously happened, but I got some stuff I want to share with everybody to make sure as to just why Kevin Durant is not the guy. And we'll be talking about that next here on the Short on Sports on X-Bomb Sports. And welcome back, everybody, here to Short on Sports for X-Bomb Sports. I'm, of course, Andrew Valentin, still hosting. I got my man TJ in the back. And TJ, we just got done talking about Tom Brady, but we got another star player we got to talk about. And are you ready for this one?
I am ready for this.
All right. Well, here we go, folks. So, if you're not aware, the Kevin Durant saga has been continuously going, but it has remained very quiet. Well, news finally just broke. I think it was yesterday when this hit, if I'm not mistaken. Kevin Durant has now rescinded his trade request from the Brooklyn Nets, which means that he will be sticking around with Brooklyn Nets for another season. Now, this came at a brief, real quick kind of talk about what happened. So basically, Kevin Durant had come out and the word was he would rather retire than be a Brooklyn Net. That has since been, I guess, squashed in a way since Kevin Durant came out on Twitter and said, yeah, that's not something that was ever on the table. So if it was ever on the table, it's off the table now, but it's not true. I was never going to retire from the NBA. Okay, fine. But apparently this past weekend, I guess they went to LA. They met Joe Tsai, the owner, Sean Marks, the GM, and Steve Nash, the coach. They met with Ryleman, who's the representative of Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant himself. They talked through everything, and apparently they came to an agreement that they will be sticking around with each other. They will make this partnership work. So now Kevin Durant is no longer requesting a trade. So teams can explore the possibility of trading for him if they want, but it sounds like Kevin Durant is going to stay with Brooklyn for sure at this point. Which is interesting, because I've been talking with some people kind of behind the scenes about this whole situation with Kevin Durant, and it seems like we kind of come to the same, not everybody I've talked to about this, but a good portion of people that I've talked to about this. It seems like the overall feeling is that the market was drying up for him so much, and the Nets were not getting the value that they were looking for, which led to a weird impasse and essentially just broke up any opportunity for Kevin Durant to be able to move on. And so now we're sitting here and we're looking at Kevin Durant and we're looking at the situation. And I like reading all types of articles. I listen to all types of media, TV, radio, all types of stuff. Even if I don't like the person, I always say, if you're in media, you should listen to them. You know why? Because they may have an opinion that you like or don't like, and you can counter it or work it into your own argument as well. That you can call that, maybe cheap if you want, but I always feel like, listen to everybody and hear what they have to say. Don't just block out the noise just because you don't like a certain person. That's just me. But I read The Ringer. I like The Ringer a lot because I think they have really good articles. They have a lot of good information at times. I think they're really good, well-written kind of articles and things like that. Damian Burkhart wrote an article. This was back in middle of August. August 16th is when this article came out. It's called "Stars Make a Splash, but Continuity is King in the NBA." And it's a very interesting article. And I read through it, and I came to the conclusion that for Kevin Durant, and I even threw in Kyrie Irving in this thing as well, because the reality is, for Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, their biggest problem is that history and data has now shown us that continuity is key to winning championships, to being title contenders and winning titles, right? I mean, it has been a proven factor that, and by the way, if you're wondering, just for clarification too, for people who don't know, if you want the definition of continuity, it is the unbroken and consistent existence or operation of something over a period of time. Okay? That is basically what continuity is. All right? We know it in continuity here in broadcasting as kind of making sure, in a basically simple fashion, it's making sure you keep everything in order, right? Making sure everything stays the same. If you shoot a scene for a movie like this, then you need to make sure that that flower pot or that water bottle or whatever is still in that same shot. Don't move things around. Don't do anything different. Just keep things where they are, because I'm telling you right now, people will notice those little details. You think I'm crazy? TJ, am I wrong to say that continuity is key in the world that we work within, broadcasting, shooting a video, or even just doing audio? Is it not one of the biggest things you should be looking at?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if you really notice, if there's a bottle moved, if all of a sudden someone's wearing a watch,
yeah,
or all of a sudden like something's changed and you're like, whoa, what? Whoa, no, that was a dog before. Now it's a cat.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where are we going with this? Is this something? And it completely just derails the entire project.
And that's exactly what I'm trying to get to. If you do not have continuity in your movie, in your TV show, in your commercial, in whatever it is you're doing, all of a sudden things can go real haywire. Well, I want to throw this up. This is some data. This came from the article itself. This is from Basketball Reference, which is from sportsreference.com. This is roster continuity percentage among NBA champions since 2000. So the very first Lakers championship with Kobe and Shaquille O'Neal, right? So that's where this one starts at. So if you read it from left to right now as you're seeing it, folks, you can see continuity percentage 69, 72, 79, 81, 78, 76, right? That was the San Antonio Spurs at 81%. Then it was the Detroit Pistons at 78%. Then it was the San Antonio Spurs again. Dipped down a little bit. They took in some new players, but they still won a championship. You notice how most of these teams are shooting above like 50, 60%, right? The highest one was the Lakers in 2008, 2009, 95%. Guess what? They go back the next year with 87% continuity. They win the championship again, right? The Dallas Mavericks win their title. Why? Because they kept a lot of the same players around. They added in a few new pieces. Same thing with the Miami Heat. Look at the lowest ones, though. The lowest one on there is the 2006 Miami Heat. Why? Because they brought in a bunch of new players at that time, right? They were redoing things. They had the whole situation going on with Shaq. They traded one player for two new players as well. They brought in Anthony Walker. They brought in a bunch of new faces, but they still kept almost 50% of that team together, right? The other team there, Boston Celtics, 2008. They brought in who? Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen, right? They also brought in, if I'm not mistaken, they brought in Rasheed Wallace, I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, or Kendrick Perkins, one of the two. They brought in one of those centers, and they drafted Rajon Rondo. So the team was a little more different than usual, but they ended up winning a championship, right? I mean, look at what the Lakers have become, right? Look at the Lakers. The Lakers win the championship in the bubble. You can see it on the list at 52% continuity, right? What happened after that? They completely dismantled the team. Because, TJ, if I'm not mistaken, the second year in, what happened to the Lakers? Do you remember by any chance?
Second year in, I think they. Oh, was that when they traded their young core?
That is correct.
Also had injuries.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is correct. They made the bubble, they made the playoffs, and then they lost. And then this year happened, where they just said, you know what, we're just going to bring in a whole new team. And they're going to be all old guys. And how'd that work? Oh, they just had one of their worst seasons in the last 20 years of the franchise, I think. This was awful. This was an awful look for them. And that goes to show, if you don't keep... Because what would have kept them together? Oh, well, Anthony Davis is one piece. You traded out Rajon Rondo for Dennis Schroeder, and then you traded out Dennis Schroeder for Russell Westbrook. You traded out Kyle Kuzma for Carmelo Anthony. What are we doing? When you don't have continuity on your team, it all falls apart. That's part of the problem. The numbers don't lie. Numbers don't lie, folks. Oh, they're just stats. They don't mean anything. Analytics. Well, analytics mean a lot right now in sports, do they not? They can determine whether or not your team is ready to win a championship. It makes a huge bit of difference on how your team is able to play. So I guess the final piece of this that this is my little quote, if you will, on this, is that I think if you're going to consider trading for a player, right? Like the Knicks right now are trying to trade for Donovan Mitchell, and they just got denied big time by the Jazz because the Jazz said, no, we don't. It was like 2 players and a draft pick, right? The Atlanta Hawks tried to make that same kind of trade as well for Kevin Durant, and they said, no, we need more. Think about what you might be blowing up, because Atlanta obviously is trying to retool a lot of things, but they're keeping some pretty core pieces around. The Jazz, or the Knicks, I should say, really, the Knicks are trying to find a way to get themselves elevated to that next level. And they've done a really good job, I think, putting a team out there, but obviously this year they completely collapsed. What happened? Well, they had injuries. Guys didn't perform to their next level. They took a gamble on some other guys because they brought in some dudes that they thought were going to play, and it turns out just didn't work. So it becomes a question of, in my opinion, of trust and talent, right? And do you want to trade the talent for the trust? Because, can you trust Kevin Durant? He hasn't really skipped out on games, but he's been injury prone. He's had a lot of issues. I've seen a lot with Kevin Durant that leads to signs pointing to, oh, this could really turn ugly if we don't get control of it. And it's same thing, and obviously the same thing goes for Kyrie Irving, right? We don't know where he's at with this whole situation in terms of being traded or not traded. He hasn't said a word, and that's probably best for him, because the more he talks, it seems like the more the more the story builds on him, of course. But I don't know. I feel like trading for either one of these stars is a high risk of losing what is the team's foundation, right? When you try to, I look at it kind of like building a house. When you start to try and figure out how to build the kitchen and what color the walls should be and how to put the tile in, when you're doing all of that well ahead of the time before the concrete's even been poured for the foundation of the house, I feel like things can get really rocky because you're jumping way ahead of the plans of trying to build your house. I don't know. That's just me. TJ, what do you think about this whole thing with continuity in the NBA? Obviously, and this just doesn't go to the NBA. I think this just really goes to sports in general, but Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, do you think that these guys, we know they're talented players, but do you think that these guys could bring anything to other teams out there right now that wouldn't mean sacrificing a ton for that other team, but still bring that other team potentially closer to winning a championship? I know that sounds confusing, but do you get what I'm saying? Do you feel that by any chance?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying, because when we were going through it and they said, oh, well, maybe we could bring Durant in to Chicago and he could be a Bulls player. Okay, well, what do we have to give up? Oh, well, you just have to give up Zach LaVine and you're paying Patrick Willis and this player and this player and this player. And it's like, well, then we're going to be still back at square one because we gave up so much that we ended up cutting off our nose to save face. You have to take a discount on Durant.
Yeah.
Because otherwise he's not going to go to a championship team because you cut off that possibility of being a championship team because you had to trade for that talent. Like they're talking, I think that LA came out and said that they would be willing to trade their 2027 first round pick and 2029 pick.
Yes.
And that's like, okay, well that's all well and good, but one, that is way too far for me as a franchise to trade. That is, I mean, it's 2022, okay?
Right.
Like that's like 4 years that I'm gonna have to wait for that pick.
Yeah, more or less.
I'm gonna have to struggle. No. So I need that continuity as you were talking about. I need those guys that know how to play together. Now, if it was like him coming back to maybe he's going back to play with Steph and Clay, I can understand that because they had that team atmosphere. They've been there. It's just bringing back that piece. But bringing him to anywhere else, he's going to have to learn his new guys. He's going to learn how their team runs. They're going to have to learn passing, how practice goes. You have to learn the media again. I mean, I know it's a little thing, but going some places, I mean, from what I heard, New York is really, really rough on some of these guys, especially when they don't do well. So
yeah,
I don't know how well he would love being a Knick. But yeah, I mean, it's just it's just never really good to trade someone and expect that you're going to get all those high picks and then be like, well, why or the talent back because it's never going to work. You're just basically trading apples for another bunch of apples.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's the biggest thing is that and by the way, TJ, you brought up the Golden State Warriors. Can you throw up that the chart one more time? I want people to see that real quick because I didn't even mention them, right? So on the chart, if you can see it real quickly, we have up there the Golden State Warriors, right? Their first championship, 80% continuity, which, I mean, that was Steph Curry, that was Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, right? Plus Andre Iguodala and a lot of guys. They kept a good core of the roster around. They added a few guys in from free agency and draft picks, but it wasn't anything major. They win the championship. Then they lose to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and then they do a giant thing where they bring in Kevin Durant. Well, that's huge. That's the 67% continuity. There's still over 65% continuity. They just added a couple more key pieces and brought in especially Kevin Durant, but they didn't drop below 50%. They didn't do anything like that. And then the next year they come back and they're at 81%. They just kind of changed a few pieces in and out. And then Kevin Durant leaves and they went on a little bit of a, 3-year hiatus. But then eventually this past year, they added Andrew Wiggins. Jordan Poole came into the situation, right? And Kayvon Looney became a bigger factor as well. By the way, Kayvon Looney was still with the team in those championships as well. But Kayvon Looney becomes a bigger factor. They're at 68% continuity, folks. That's huge. That's big. That shows you right there that the Golden State Warriors absolutely are that team that you need to look at and say, wow, how do they do it? They keep their core around. It's very clear that keeping your core together. That's why when I was so adamant about the Bulls trading away Zach LaVine, everybody was against me, and I didn't see the light. I now see the light, okay? I don't know if Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan and those guys can win you a championship, but I think a core of DeMar, Zach, and I would say Lonzo. I don't know about Vooch. There's talking about giving him an extension, and we'll talk about that maybe some other time, but I think those three core guys, plus whatever you can develop along the way, I think that can be a team that can absolutely, at some point in the near future here, be in the playoffs and be competitive as a contending team in the East. I think that really can happen because it shows on this chart, the data, the history doesn't lie, folks. If you have good continuity across your team, you will be competitive, you will win championships. Think about Phoenix, right? Phoenix brings in who? Chris Paul, and that's really it. That's the only big move they made. Devin Booker, and they kept DeAndre Ayton. Whether he's good for chemistry or not, I don't know. That we heard a lot about him, obviously, in the offseason, but they're keeping the continuity together. The Bucs, everybody's sticking together, right? Everybody's sticking together. It's all these other teams that all of a sudden, it's the Lakers and the Knicks and all of these teams that are scrambling for wins that want to be relevant, that are like, yeah, we got to retool the entire team. We got to change everything. We got to do everything all different. We got to tear it down and start all over again. That's where you got problems. At least for the Lakers, they've got one continuity piece, and that was LeBron getting his 2-year, $97 million deal. That's insane. But he's a winner, and he makes teams better, and I can't deny that. So I just want I want people to understand that, listen, I harbor nothing against Kevin Durant. I harbor nothing against Kyrie Irving. I think both of them have their moments at times that make me go and roll my eyes, even though you can't see them rolling. I roll my eyes and I kind of go, oh, here we go again with these two. But I think it's important to note that these guys are supremely talented. Kevin Durant's going to be a Hall of Famer at some point. He's already one of the all-time elite scoring players in the history of the game. I don't know if Kyrie Irving's there or not, but I think given more time, he's still got a long career he can have. If he plays the game right, he wins another championship. Maybe he does get some sort of MVP at some point. I don't know. I definitely think he becomes a Hall of Famer at that point in time. Absolutely. Nevertheless, these two guys would potentially break up any possible chemistry there would be on other teams, I think, and throw that team out of sync. You know, I think the only teams at this point that can really improve would be Houston and Orlando, because they're still trying to build a team. They're still trying to build chemistry. And even then, do you really want to, potentially shake up that tree? Because it looks like they may have their franchise players in Paolo Banchero in Orlando, and then Jalen Green in Houston. Do you really want to shake that tree and see what falls off? Caution to the NBA out there for sure, but it sounds like I think the whole NBA looked at the stats and said, yeah, no, we'll keep continuity. You guys can stay in Brooklyn, which, by the way, is a good thing for Brooklyn. You keep continuity. You don't have to make a lot of changes. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. I don't know if they're going to win because they still got to figure out what to do with Ben Simmons, but that's for another time. That's for a whole... I could sit here for another half hour doing that, but we don't have that kind of time. And I want to say thank you to everybody for watching and listening. This has been a great show, albeit a short show, but it's Shorts on Sports, ladies and gentlemen, and get ready for more of these when we do have the time. Me and TJ doing our thing. By the way, TJ Knacker, ladies and gentlemen, in the bag. TJ, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for being a part of this, man. I appreciate the hell out of you, man, for everything that you do. And please let the people know where they can find you, listen to you, all that good stuff, amigo.
Well, you can find me in the back on Blow the Whistle and on X-Bomb when I'm here. And if you're looking for me on Facebook, name's TJ Knacker. And on Instagram, it's Knack300.
Absolutely. Guys, make sure to go give him some likes, some love, some... he deserves it for all the hard work he does. We're going to get him more on the show. We're even planning on doing more stuff kind of on an independent level with all of us. So be on the lookout for that. We got some stuff cooking in the works right now, folks. So be ready for that. If you guys want to follow me, I'm at The Fluffy Guru on Twitter, but I'm also at Boom Crew Captain all the time on Instagram. That's where you can mostly find me. If you guys want to find any more of our stuff, you can also always follow us at our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/TeamXBombSports, where you can see the stream, get live updates of the show, all that kind of good stuff. You guys can also check out our live stream as well at YouTube at XBomb Sports. It's the big red bomb right there. You can't miss it, folks. Just subscribe, like our page, and you'll get notifications for when we go live, and you can watch our stream on a simulcast on Facebook or YouTube. Also, too, check out our social media at XBomb Sports on Instagram and on Twitter. We're starting to get more active on that stuff, so be on the lookout for that. Also, too, make sure if you have any questions or comments as well, you can email us at xbsportsofficial@gmail.com. We love hearing from you guys. We got a lot of good questions coming in. By the way, thank you to those of you who sent me the music video of Trace McSorley. I know he scored a touchdown. Okay? Thank you. You did not need to let me know. Podcast stuff real quick. Blow the Whistle. We did the radio show yesterday. It'll be out on all the Apple, Google podcast stuff, so be on the lookout for that. Anchor, all that. We usually go live 2 to 4 p.m. on the Mondays, ladies and gentlemen. Also, too, make sure to check us on the TV side. We did not go live today. We won't be going live this week for Blow the Whistle, but we will be back next week, so be on the lookout for that on Tuesdays, 2:30 to 3:30. Also, check out our boy, Brandon Januska. It's our very own boy, Brandon Januska, doing his thing at 94.3 WMKR. Excuse me. He's also doing his thing at Baseball Banter with Brandon on Spotify. Make sure to go check that out as well, folks. It's a wonderful podcast on Spotify where he talks about baseball and all his feelings and objections on it. Also, too, while you're on Spotify, check out Money Motivation with Hannah B. Wonderful podcast by our very own Hannah Brummer, where you get your positivity for the day. You can also check her out at 102.3 XLC on the afternoon drive, doing her radio thing, or on 96.7 The Star, as she's doing the morning show with the very famous Eddie Volkman right now, with Eddie and Hannah doing their live thing. They're doing a great job, ladies and gentlemen. Also, too, check out our boys at The Parlay. That's right, theparlay.com. It's Tony Lopez alongside Kendall Gill, ladies and gentlemen, former Chicago Bull and professional boxer Kendall Gill, as they talk about boxing, MMA, combat sports, all that stuff. Check out their latest episode. They're going to probably be talking about Usyk, and they're probably going to be talking about the Usman loss in MMA, so be on the lookout for that. They do great stuff. Again, it's theparlay.com. And tomorrow, folks, you can check us out at the Fake Football Guys as well. That's right. Fake Football Guys is our guy Dustin and JC, as they do their talk about fantasy football, give you the tips and tricks of what you're looking for. Tomorrow, we're breaking down running backs, so be on the lookout for that. I don't know what will be on Friday. I think it'll be wide receivers. I don't know if I will be there or not, but if I am not, my lovely boy TJ will be there in the back with my boy David Dykstra, probably doing their thing, so be on the lookout for that. It's at Fake Football Guys here on YouTube. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for us. Thank you all so much for watching and listening, and as always, much love and peace out, Boom Crew.